Sigo cruzando ríos, andando selvas, amando el sol. Cada día sigo secando espinas de lo profundo del corazón. En la noche sigo encendiendo sueños para limpiar con el humo sagrado cada recuerdo.
Cuando escriba tu nombre en lana blanca con fondo azul, cuando mire el cielo en una alfombra cruel de una nube gris, aparezcas tú. Una tarde subo a una alta loma, mira el pasado, sabrás que no te he olvidado.
Hi, my name is Kieran, and I'm a York Class of 2023 Distinguished Global Scholar.
Hello, I'm Ryan, and I am also a York Class of 2023 Distinguished Global Scholar.
My topic title is Justice for All, Justicia para Todos.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. Could you tell me about how you became interested in social justice towards the Hispanic community here in the United States?
Well, I've always somewhat been interested in it, but recently I took a Spanish-English medical interpretation class over the summer. And aside from learning new vocabulary and how to interpret in a medical setting, we also talked about the socially unjust aspect of the US medical system. So learning all that, it got me thinking more about it, and I wanted to see how people felt here in California about the situation. So I interviewed someone asking questions about how they felt as a Chicana living in California, which is the state with the highest Hispanic population, having nearly 16 million people, which is 38% of the state.
Oh, that's really cool. I find it really interesting that you were actually able to go out and find somebody to interview. How did the interview go? What kinds of questions and stuff did you ask, and what did she have to say in response?
All right, well, mind if I code switch a little here?
Sure, go ahead.
So I asked three questions. The first one was, ¿cuáles son los problemas más persistentes para usted en los Estados Unidos? What are the most persistent problems you face in the United States? And she replied that she faces a lot of discrimination, and she will often find people who don't appreciate them as Hispanic people. The second question I asked was, si usted pudiera cambiar una cosa del sistema médico, ¿qué sería? If you could change one thing about the medical system, what would it be? She replied that she would love for there to be more help in general for the Hispanic population, especially in the way of health insurance. She replied, eso ayudaría a muchas personas que están enfermas y no pueden pagar sus costos con el médico, expressing that there are a lot of people who are in the Hispanic population who cannot pay for their medical costs and they can't get the help they need. And this kind of leads into the aspect of racism and discrimination that comes with translation and misinterpretation. The third and final question I asked her was, ¿experimenta usted formas de racismo frecuentemente? Do you experience forms of racism frequently? And to this she replied, yes, she has experienced racism, not as much now as she did in the past when she would work at a Subway restaurant and customers would come in and be very angry with her, telling her to leave the country, going back to her old country. And then those people often were immigrants themselves, and that's the part I find shocking. They were just from other countries. She says, pero ahora de vez en cuando todavía me encuentro con ese tipo de personas en la calle, that she still experiences racism among people in the streets that she meets still to this day.
Okay, wow. So it really is important to have this perspective and to keep all of these kind of issues that she and likely many, many other people experience on a daily basis in mind. But for all of these problems, are there any solutions that people could easily implement?
Yeah, I think the main thing that people need to do is just be aware of everything and everyone around them, because people are living their own lives and they're having their own struggles, and it's not really your place to step in and judge them for that. So just like being aware of people around you, being aware of like forms of racism, forms of discrimination. I mean, it could even be as simple as a sign in the park that's translated badly, and some little kid thinks that they aren't allowed to play in the park because the sign says they can't. And then also another key point I want to point out is that we live in what used to be Mexico, so like, why are people getting so upset now that we took what used to be theirs? We can't just kick everyone out, and what's the point in doing that anyway? They're just people like us, and they just need a place to live. And also, a point that I learned in my summer class that I really want to highlight is that there is no official language in the US, and so there shouldn't be language discrimination either. I think there should also be more access for undocumented immigrants to get healthcare, affordable healthcare and insurance, because that is something that is a real struggle nowadays, and people who are undocumented can't even get the simple right of taking care of themselves. So yeah, those are some things that I really want to implement change in, and hopefully whoever's listening to this feels the same way and is able to take some of this to heart, especially the solutions. That's all I have for us today. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, well, thank you so much for talking. It was really interesting listening to everything, especially the interview.
Yeah, I had a nice time talking with her.
Yeah, I could imagine. But, all right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran, for sharing your summer learning on social justice, access to healthcare, and appropriate translation for the Hispanic communities in the Central Coast region. Let's now head to the Southern Hemisphere to learn about Ryan's study of the Argentine economy.
Hello, my name is Ryan, and I'm a York Class of 2023 Distinguished Global Scholar.
Hi, I'm Kieran, and I'm also a Class of 2023 Distinguished Global Scholar.
And today I'm going to be talking about my synthesis project, the Argentine Economic Tango, as well as my experience as a global scholar.
All right. So I guess we'll start off with your experience being a global scholar. What does global scholars mean for you, and what did you get out of it?
Well, for me, global scholars really has just been about cultural exploration, especially through language, and learning about new cultures, especially that of the Spanish-speaking world, because I've been taking Spanish classes, and through these Spanish classes, I've been able to learn so much about the world that I really wouldn't have had the opportunity to otherwise, especially when it comes to the language, but also, the food, the customs, just all sorts of stuff about the culture that I really would have not had the opportunity to otherwise. My Spanish classes, I actually had the opportunity to go on a study abroad trip to directly experience the culture as well as learn about the issues they were facing. And my trip was to Argentina, and that's where I actually got the idea for my synthesis project.
So, as you know, for being a global scholar, you have to take multiple classes and meet requirements. And I'm wondering what your favorite has been for classes or extracurriculars that you took for the global scholars requirements.
I'd have to say my favorite extracurricular has been Model United Nations, or Model UN. I joined last year, junior year, and now I'm leading the club, which is a bit of a surprise. Yeah. But anyways, it's kind of like a debate club, I guess, but it's definitely different because everybody, instead of supporting opposing sides, you're all working together for a solution to the same issue. And how it works is basically you go to these conferences and you're randomly assigned a country whose viewpoints you may or may not agree with on the issue, but really you're debating the issue from the perspective of your country for the benefit of your country. So really you have to do a lot of research into the background of the country you're assigned, and it's a really good opportunity to learn about the history of other places around the world, especially regarding the issue, and you can delve into more background and historical research if you really want. But it also gives you an opportunity to get out of your comfort zone a little and see things from a new perspective. But yeah, you go to the conference, you write a little position paper, you're given the issue in advance, so you know what you're arguing for. But it's been really fun, I think. This year we've been to 2 different conferences, I think, and all of them have been really fun, yeah.
Okay, so about your synthesis project, what's your topic?
My topic is the Argentine economic tango. It's on the just the series of economic crises that Argentina has undergone throughout the years. I came up with the idea for my topic after visiting Argentina. But yeah, the economic situation there is anything but good. They've defaulted 9 times throughout their history, which basically means the government has been unable to pay off their debt because they've gone completely broke, out of money, basically. It's gotten so bad that economists have actually come up with a term called the Argentine paradox, which is when the GDP per person, instead of, okay, I should probably explain what this means a bit more, but generally for wealthy countries, such as Argentina historically, the GDP per person tends to increase over time, and the GDP per person for less wealthy countries usually tends to stay about the same. It can definitely increase as time goes on. But what doesn't happen usually, and what's happened with Argentina, is the GDP per person started off relatively high and has lowered throughout history instead of increasing.
And what is the GDP again?
GDP is the gross domestic product, and it's basically a measurement of how much money or the size of the economy of a country. And GDP per person, it's I guess it's really a way of measuring the wealth of the average population of just any citizen you would find living in the country, and by extent the living standards, because of how much wealth they have. But the thing is, it's been going slowly down because inflation in Argentina is just incredibly terrible right now. That's the only really good way to put it. Just to put it in perspective, for the inflation in 2022, with everybody freaking out in the United States about the economy and everything and how inflation was so terrible, the United States, the US dollar, inflation was about 6%, meaning the value of a US dollar at the beginning of 2022 was 6% more than the value of the dollar at the end of 2022. And just keeping that in mind, inflation in 2022 for Argentina was 94%. Okay. Meaning, yeah, it's really bad, which basically means if your savings, your income, and everything related to your money would basically be halved by the end of the year, which is absolutely terrible.
And how have these economic crises affected the Argentine people?
Well, it's actually led to the creation of this system called the dólar blue, and I'll explain what that means. So basically, the distrust in the banks by the general population, because inflation was so bad, led to people trying to secure their money in US dollars. So people could convert all of their wealth from Argentine peso to US dollars, and then inflation would only be about 6%. So their livings basically wouldn't be halved, just because the US dollar was that much more stable than the peso. The term for the dólar blue, the name from it comes from the blue band on the United States $100 bills. And these are the bills that are in the most demand, because if you get it, it's that's $100 that is guaranteed to be more stable than the peso. So like instead of a 20 or a 5 or a 1 or whatever. Anyways, the demand for these US dollars just to secure the people's already existing money is so high that exchangers will often give 30 to 40% more than the official bank exchange rate. So if you go to a money exchanger in the street, for instance, and hand them, say, a $100 bill, the most valuable bill, instead of getting, what you'd get from a bank, on average, the exchange rate is currently it's about 200 pesos to $1 American dollar. So you get about 20,000 pesos. So, but if you go to these exchangers in the streets and hand them the $100 bill, they will give you around 28 to 30,000 pesos, which is just an incredible amount more than you would get at the banks and everything. And the thing is, what people are hoping when they pay just such incredible amounts above the official exchange rate for the United States bills, what they're counting on is that the inflation is just going to keep going up and up and up. So soon, a US $100 bill will be worth like 30 to 40,000 pesos instead of 20,000 pesos. And the thing is, this method actually works, and people have made, I guess, profit off of this. They've managed to secure their savings, actually, by doing this. And when I was there, I actually saw this in person. I was walking through these busy streets. There was some big market going on at the time, but there are these big busy streets right around the Capitol building, the Casa Rosada, which is their equivalent of the White House, I guess. But I saw just these money exchanges in the streets, and they're often relying on tourists with the $100 bills. And they're out in the streets shouting, "Cambio, cambio, cambio," and which roughly translates to change or exchange. So people will use these money exchangers to get better rates. And what I really took away from this is that people are getting so desperate that instead of relying on just jobs that you could apply for and get the position for, they're betting on these tourists coming in and exchanging their money with them, and it's working, which is the most concerning part.
Yo te llevo dentro hasta la raíz. Y por más que crezca, vas a estar aquí. Aunque yo me oculte tras la montaña y encuentro un campo lleno de caña, no habrá manera, mi rayo de luna, que tú te vayas.
Thank you, Kieran and Ryan, for your insights, first-hand accounts, and field research. You have both inspired me to continue with Ryan's use of tango, which is an Argentine dance, as a metaphor for not only the economic situation with the dólar blue, but also the linguistic code switching that Kieran discussed so well. Just as tango involves a blending of different dance styles, linguistic code switching involves blending different languages or dialects in communication. In tango, dancers often combine elements of European, African, and indigenous dance traditions, creating a unique and vibrant style. Similarly, when people code switch, they blend elements of different languages or dialects in order to communicate more effectively in any given context. On the economic side, just as the tango is a dance that requires skill, coordination, and intuition, navigating the dólar blue requires a similar set of skills. As you said so well, Ryan, those who can successfully navigate the unofficial exchange rate can reap greater rewards, while those who are unable to may also struggle to keep up with the ever-changing economic landscape. I can say that I have family in Argentina, and having lived and worked there, I can echo what you said, Ryan, and share the existence of the dólar blue and how it reflects broader economic issues in the country, including high inflation and currency instability, and is also a way that those who can hold on to US dollars as a way to protect their savings from the high inflation rates that the country has experienced in the past. Also, due to the restrictions on buying US dollars, the black market of sorts has become a common way to obtain them, also known as this blue market of sorts. And Kieran, again, thank you so much for your insight, your interviews, your time spent seeing where the lacuna is in our translation, the materials, especially in Monterey County, where we have so many Spanish speakers, and we really need to move forward in a tradition of bilingual literature. Muchísimas gracias a los dos. Thank you very much to both of you. And thank you to our audience out there for listening, for tuning in to this first series from our Global Scholars, our Distinguished Global Scholars 2023 York School. A big round of applause. Muchísimas gracias.